recognize the ranking member for opening statement. I yield to the ranking member for an opening statement. I yield back.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Distinguished gentlelady from California, Mary Bono. Gentlelady is recognized.
Chair now recognizes the lady from California is recognized.
I'm pleased to introduce Congresswoman Mary Bono, former U.S. Representative for California's Inland Empire and Desert Region from 1998 to 2013.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Welcome to Sagely Speaking. I'm your host, Mary Bono, and I'm so happy you're here. On this podcast, I hope to bring you insightful conversations with a variety of guests from all walks of life, people with stories, wisdom, and perspectives that inspire and inform. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe, and if you feel inspired, leave a 5-star rating. It helps us reach more listeners like you. Now let's dive into today's conversation. Hi, and welcome to Sagely Speaking. I am so excited about this guest today. This conversation is just going to be fun. And I call this guy Craig Prater, an international man of mystery. When you hear about his career and his life, you're going to think, wow, what an amazing life. I wish I could do that. But Craig Prater, welcome to Sagely Speaking.
Oh, thank you, Mary. It's really nice to be here. It's a pleasure to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while, but I keep tabs on you through social media and all, and I know that our lives sort of run in parallel tracks at times, and I'm just so glad that you're here. Now, Craig was one of the early pioneers who helped us develop the Palm Springs International Film Festival, and of course, the credit should go where it must go, and that is to my late husband, Sonny Bono. But Craig helped us launch that festival, helped build it in its early difficult years when we struggled and nobody believed. But Craig, let's talk, okay, after Palm Springs, my God, you went to Bangkok and you traveled the world, and I want to get into all of that. But let's start with Palm Springs and how you got involved with the Palm Springs International Film Festival.
Well, first of all, I give credit to the Palm Springs Film Festival for launching a career that went on then for 30 years after that. So I give all the credit to starting in Palm Springs. But I do remember when Sonny called me and said, Craig, I'd like for you to join the film festival. I said, Sonny, I don't know anything about film festivals. I don't have a film background. And I think it was more about working with trying to find sponsors because we didn't have any money in the early days. It was rough. And of course, there were people that they didn't even think it was a good idea to start a film festival in Palm Springs. And of course, those were in the early days when nobody even knew hardly what a film festival was. But it was rough in those days, but we kept going and it turned into something very nice. I think groundwork was actually put in place to make it the great film festival that it is today with another team.
Well, you know, it's funny, Craig, because I'm going to refresh your memory a little bit. We're just trying to do this. We're trying to remember facts, and by now we just make them up as we need them. But there was a big chunk of resumes at our house on our kitchen counter for people who would be interested in that job. And I dug through them and came across your name. And you had a great career at the Desert AIDS Project. You were a terrific leader, leading a great organization through its infancy and on to becoming just a huge, great organization. So we did pluck your resume out, and maybe you forgot that but you were interested. But what I love about having you on my show today is a number of things. One, I love new chapters in life. I love hearing how people just gave up what they were doing, whether they were comfortable with what they were doing or uncomfortable, but they moved on to something entirely new, brave new horizons. So I like that part about it, but you touched on this. The Palm Springs International Film Festival was ridiculed in the beginning. And the intent was that this film festival would rival the greatest film festivals in the world, most notably Cannes, right? And people were just laughing at us and saying, this will never work. It's going to be a failure.
Yep.
And so these are the main themes and why I really wanted to talk to you. A leap of faith into a whole new life. And B, a lot of people said you couldn't do it. We couldn't do it and it wouldn't happen. So can we talk about all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. But Mary, I want to go back to something you just started right then referencing on all those resumes. Mary, to this day, when people say, Craig, when you go back to the early days of the film festival, how did all that get started? I said, well, I'll tell you what, I always reference our founder, Sonny Bono, of getting the invite. But I said, I really think it was Mary Bono that was very influential of putting that resume in front of Sonny's face and saying, we ought to consider this guy. So yes, that was a leap of faith of leaving. I think I was with the Desert AIDS Project. That was in the early days when nobody even wanted to even say the word AIDS. They didn't.
Right.
We didn't have an office building. We didn't have anything. Again, no money was there, and of course, it was a horrible, horrible time in the '80s when all this was going on. But then I just decided, let's go for it, Craig. I just had, I just had interest of a new concept, a film festival in Palm Springs. So that was a leap of faith because I honestly, Mary, didn't know what I was doing at the time. I went in with blind faith that we could make it work. And of course, I was always encouraged by the volunteers and the staff and of course, Sonny pushing forward. So it was a rough time in those early days.
Let's talk about the early days. So, the first film was Cinema Paradiso.
Cinema Paradiso, correct.
For the festival started out for international films, trying to find its own little spot. And of course, being sandwiched in between the other various festivals that were ongoing, especially Sundance that falls right after Palm Springs. But yeah, it started out a little slow, absolutely great film, standing ovation. People loved it. And we had that early focus on international films. But our earliest honoree at the gala was Ruby Keeler. Now, if anybody listening to this remembers Ruby Keeler without having to Google her, you'll know that we had to sort of dig deep. And then, of course, we had to really beg friends to be honorees. And they really helped. A lot of great people. Billy Friedkin, the great director, was helping out. A lot of great people, to your point, Craig. This was a team effort. A lot of people who dared to do what a lot of people said was impossible and going to fail.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And we were taking chances because just the concept of an international film for that opening launch of the film festival, that in itself was frightening and scary and really a risk because it wasn't ever discussed in those days about international films, but that was a vision of the film festival in those early days of focusing on international films. And to your point about the honorees, I like to point out to people who are walking down one of the streets in Palm Springs and all those stars in the sidewalk. In the early days, that was really a launch of the film festival because all those stars that we were honoring, their stars are in the sidewalk there. The Sophia Lorens, the James Earl Jones. The list goes on. And so it was really a new time, and we were taking chances. But it's proved to be rather good decisions that were made in those early days that we didn't know they were good decisions.
Let's talk a little bit about your fondest memories of the early days. And if you have to dish a little dirt, I doubt you will, but did somebody fall asleep in their plate of pasta or give us some of your most memorable moments from the early days?
One of the most memorable moments was when Sophia Loren was at the film festival and she was in your kitchen and cooking pasta and everything. And I thought, here's this superstar that you know what? I have to back up a little bit. I remember when I was to introduce Sophia Loren to the group of press. Now, in those days, in the early days, the international press turned out big when they heard that Sophia Loren was going to be at the film festival. I had not been introduced to her yet. So I was welcoming the crowd and telling them how pleased I was that they were there. And all of a sudden, I look up and here comes Sophia to the stage. I was like a little starstruck, crazy kid because all I could do was just stare at this gorgeous lady thinking, I've got to introduce her to the media, and I just hope I can do it without just looking like an idiot staring at her because she was so beautiful. And I just remember that her beautiful skin just standing, it just looked like velvet, but she was so beautiful.
I remember the exact same thing. It's like, her skin, like on her chest and her face.
Yes.
But she was so kind.
Oh,
and down to earth and unassuming and welcoming. I agree with you. Starstruck,
Yep.
definitely starstruck that this.
And you know what, Mary? You just mentioned something that you're reminding me. When she started walking to the stage, and I was noticing her beautiful skin, I remember exactly what she had on. It was a red suit, and she had this very lace-looking blouse underneath. And I
Low
was looking
cut
at this.
too.
Yes,
Very
and
low cut.
I was looking at her, and I said, Craig, keep your eyes on her face. Do not allow your eyes to look any further because they're all going to see this and it's going to be photographed. But she was so beautiful. But I even remember that dress, that suit she had on because of you reminding me of what she looked like.
But isn't it funny? Because I think about her often with some of my style choices. Obviously, not all. I live in the mountains of Colorado now. I wear Levi's and cowboy boots and a white t-shirt oftentimes. But with her, she was so sexy, glamorous, yet I don't want to use the word conservative because it might be misappropriated here, but she wasn't flamboyant. She wasn't gaudy. Nothing was skin tight. I think she was wearing all Armani head to toe.
Yep.
And she was just the epitome of class.
Yes. And she had one of her sons with her, and she every now and then with her comments, her reflection back to, well, she's a mother too, and so it was fun to see her as a real person.
Yes, I know. My kids loved meeting her in the house, and she was speaking Italian to them, and I learned then and there that even a small boy like Cesare, my son, understood sexuality at a very young age. She oozed it.
Yes, she sure did.
How about Jimmy Stewart? Those were some of my favorite days. And you again talk about an amazing, larger than life man, yet a real down to earth man. What about Jimmy?
He was. And you know what? When I think of Jimmy Stewart, he was a gentleman. That just stood out above everything else. I mean, in my mind, he was a superstar and bigger than life, but he was always very well mannered. He was a gentleman. That's just, I want to say a gentleman. That's the word that comes to mind when I think of Jimmy Stewart and how he dealt with the press and the people and the volunteers. I mean, volunteers were just awestruck, but he was always kind to say hello to them and just be a gentleman to them.
You know, Craig, I don't think you knew this, but I had a moment with him at the party at our house that to me was a moment I will never forget in my entire life. So both Jimmy Stewart and my father served in the 8th Air Force in World War II. Jimmy was a pilot, and my dad was a waist gunner in a B-17 crew. And Jimmy Stewart was known for that, was famous for his service in World War II. I was able to introduce the two to each other. And boy, did they talk and bond. And I have this photograph of the two just face to face. And I'm in between. I'm like, just like, I don't know, so proud. Well, of course, of my father. I think I was more like, hey, Jimmy, let me introduce you to my father. Like, I was so proud of my dad. And for them, it was a kindred spirit kind of moment. And that to me was one of the great highlights of the film festival.
Oh, absolutely. And Mary, as we were saying, during that same period of time, I remember having Mickey Rooney show up at the film festival.
Mickey and Jan, yeah.
Maybe one of our first controversial celebrities, because at that time the reporters all wanted to know, well, wait a minute, how many times has he been married? That was an issue. And then of course when we announced we were going to put a star in the sidewalk, but Mickey was still he was fun, he was silly, so I when I think of Mickey Rooney, I think of just fun. He was just fun because he was so silly all the time.
Why would be critical? Look, I've been married multiple times. My detractors love to point that out to me. I really got it right this time, and this is it, fourth and final. But what's wrong? Why would people pick on him for being married multiple times, especially a star of Hollywood? Oh, my God, that's hysterical.
Of course, but they had to have something. Yeah. They just had to have something. And, you know, sometimes, Mary, we think about, well, that was way back when. But, you know, I'm with you. There's things that don't change over a period of time sometimes. And I think they were just searching for something to make a comment because the film festival was ridiculed in those early days. There was not always great, wonderful things said about the film festivals. We struggled to just move forward.
Well, lots of detractors. And of course, Sonny was using some, city money to seed this festival, and there were critics just of that. Yep. And we can get into that a little bit later because I still want to talk about some of these stars. and these celebrities and point out that Palm Springs has a long history of, A-listers and amazing people. And some of the early people who did help and did support were, of course, the great Frank Sinatra,
Yep.
great Kirk Douglas, Kirk and Ann, Frank and Barbara, of course, Bob Hope and Dolores Hope. There were a lot of people who eventually came on board, did what they could, participated, and helped build it. Robert Wagner, Jill St. John, a lot of people who really helped in the early days. And those are the people who are willing to take a risk. Are we getting on board the Titanic, or is this thing gonna go anywhere? And would you agree with me? And I know you're going to, else I wouldn't ask the question. Palm Springs has once again become what it used to be in its heyday, and it has become an international destination because of the film festival and other festivals and events too. But the Palm Springs International Film Festival put the city of Palm Springs itself back on the map, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And I have to give credit to those early days of Sonny's vision. And one of the first awards that we added was that Visionary Award, and it was because of Sonny, because he was thinking about the future. He was thinking about international focus on Palm Springs. He was doing a good job of being in the political arena in Palm Springs as the mayor, and because it was all about pulling the attention back to Palm Springs, the old movie star days back in the 30s and 40s, and bringing that back to life. And it really did that. So I think the groundwork that was put in place in those early days is what revived Palm Springs. Because, Mary, you and I can remember when Palm Springs was, in the summertime, it just closed down. There was nothing here. There were no stores. The hotels closed down. The restaurants closed down. And now look at it now. It's revived. I mean, I was downtown last night. You can't even walk on the sidewalks. It's just so packed right now. So it's wonderful to see that a lot of revival ideas and concepts were put in place because of the International Film Festival. And of course, when the film festival happens in January of each year now, oh my goodness, it's the world is focused on Palm Springs. So it's a lot of wonderful things happened in those early days to lay the groundwork for what's happening now.
And if you look, for the listeners, Palm Springs is a city that is one city in a larger valley that we call the Coachella Valley. Of course, now that includes the Coachella Music Festival, that includes Stagecoach, that includes world-renowned golf tournaments, which it has for a long, long time. But we have more, and they're bigger and they're better. Sonny, loved the concept of auto racing, and there were a number of years in Palm Springs where there was the Palm Springs Grand Prix, which was spectacular, although kind of inconvenient for the residents and noisy for the residents. But now there's a racetrack out in Thermal.
Yep.
So his idea was good. Another one of his ideas was to bring the fashion shows, the pret-a-porter, from New York and try to steal it from New York, as if that was going to happen. But to do something like that, move that to Palm Springs. But now it's almost impossible to get through any sort of fashion magazine or commercial that doesn't include Palm Springs and a fashion shoot.
That's right.
So his ideas, maybe at the time they were a little bit early for the time, but they're there, they're alive and they're well. But it wasn't just Sonny. I mean, subsequent city councils were on board, future mayors were on board. They understood the importance of creating the excitement again and creating a tourist season in the shoulder season.
Yes.
So when the tourists weren't all there, so we wanted to lengthen the tourist season. So that worked. And I think that they still believe in that, which is pretty cool.
I think so too. And your reference to the introduction of the fashion world and everything with Palm Springs. Look what's happened now. We got Fashion Week in the desert, and back to your not just Palm Springs but valley wide. We have Fashion Week with Susan Stein, and what they've done with Fashion Week now. Again, it's another example of a vision that was back in the days that Sonny threw out there, that now it's big time and people come to town for that Fashion Week. So there's so many different things that happened that still is growing. And back to the comment we were making about former stars and everything. I mean, I actually have fun. Now, of course, this is exposing my age and everything, but I can be walking downtown now and somebody will see a sidewalk and they'll say, but who was Sophia Loren? And then there's comments now about a Maryland statue. Well, who was Marilyn Monroe? And I'm thinking that's history, Palm Springs, So I don't know. It's I get a kick, but at times frustrated over the great groundwork and history that was put in place, and now some of it's moving on and others being questioned.
The circle of life, Craig, the circle of
Yes,
life.
that's right.
And there are plenty of A-lister young stars today who are out there, whether they have homes or they just vacation out there. But at the same time, it's an amazing community to live in and to work in, and with or without the celebrity cachet of it all, if you will. But I think Sylvester Stallone was a great guest. Oh my gosh, I think it was one of the years you weren't there, but Sean Connery.
Oh yes.
The names got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now of course today it's whatever actors or actresses are up for the Academy Awards,
right.
Kickoff awards
season. What, Mary? That's something else that you're reminding me of, about some history here. But the date with the awards season, with the Golden Globes and the Oscars and everything, that was a vision that Sonny had, and I remember being criticized by doing it at the first of the year. Well, that's Sundance, and that's all that criticism. That was the awards season, and look what's happened now. The Golden Globes and the Academy Awards take advantage, rightly so, of the Palm Springs Film Festival, because that just helps expose the films and the stars to get those votes for all that awards season. So that was another thing, that groundwork was laid that a lot of people didn't understand, and it was really done right.
It was interesting, and I alluded to this earlier, but there was criticism because he was asking the city council for the seed money to start this. And we need to give a shout out to our friend Buzz Stussy and what was then called Nortel Networks, who came in early as our biggest sponsor. And they really believed in it. It kicked it off. Again, thank you, Buzz. I know he's going to listen to this or watch it. But the decision for a mayor to say, hey, I want to take some money out of the city coffers and spend it on an entertainment festival that's, by the way, never even tested or tried. And he had some convincing to do. And every year, the budget time, those numbers were precarious. Critics always. It's part of life, right? But I think it's important for people to realize that sometimes, when a city council does decide to take risks and invest in something like this that can pay off if it's part of the strategic plan. And so I think I want to give the city of Palm Springs credit for continuing to recognize that this was an investment into the future, and it paid off, I don't know, 100-fold in the original investment. So to other cities who are looking at things like this is an example of when it goes right.
Yes, and Mary, you're touching on something that was really vital at the time. And again, credit goes to that city council during that time, because in fairness, during that time, because again, the film festival really had no money. We were just wondering from day to day how we were going to pay the bill, how we were going to pay that film rental, how we were going to rent a theater. And I would show up many times on the city council steps out there thinking I'm going to go in and see if they could release some money a little ahead of time so we could pay bills. But then back to your point, yes, when Nortel Networks stepped in with the help of Buzz Stussy, that first check for $25,000, we thought we had received $1 million.
It's true.
And it did turn into millions of dollars when they become the title sponsor and their commitment every year. But you know what? That, again, it's reminded me of some history. When we secured Nortel Networks, I got some great criticism for securing a title sponsor for two reasons. One, well, wait a minute, we don't want to put Nortel Networks in front of Palm Springs in the title. I said, they're making a 5-year commitment that's going to add up to over $1 million. Well, that kind of calmed it down just a little bit. But yes, it was those early days when people like Buzz Stussy brought things like that to the table, because it was we didn't have money in those days, and anything like that would help. And you know what? Also, we got help about the same time from, because it was new at the time, the Agua Calientes made a $25,000 donation at first year that they got involved, and we just thought that was just fortunes. And I'll always remember uh, putting Nortel Networks and the Agua Caliente on the front row at the Wars Gala. And that wasn't, I got a lot of ridicule. In fact, I was convinced I might be fired during that time because I put
Again.
a foreign, yes, you're right, a foreign country on the front row. We put the tribal band of Kuya Indians on the front row at the Wars Gala. But they are what kept us going in those early days because of their money.
We'll continue with our interview in a moment, but first I'd like to thank my sponsors. Lucy Pet Foods is the leader in gut health. Their formulas for life feature prebiotic, balanced fiber that nourishes your dog and cat's total health. Every purchase helps support the Lucy Pet Foundation, a 501c3 charity helping animals. Save 15% off your first order and use the promo code SAGELYSPEAKING, all one word, and you will get free shipping at lucypetfoods.com. If you're committed to tackling the opioid and addiction crises, then you need to be at the 2025 RX Summit. Use code SAGELY, that's SAGELY, for an extra $100 off. Join top experts and professionals as we share strategies for prevention, deflection, treatment, and recovery. Don't miss this chance to be part of the change. Head over to rx-summit.com to register now. That's rx-summit.com for an additional $100 off.
As the mom of two amazing kids, I know how important it is to keep our children safe. And that's why I talk to them about the dangers of drugs. It is not always an easy conversation, but it's essential. By talking openly, we can help our kids understand the risks, which will help them make smart choices. Create a safe place for our kids to ask questions and share their feelings. Together, we can empower them to just say no. Start the conversation today. Your kids' future depends on it. The greatest gift is a conversation.
And now, back to our interview. Let me point something out too, Craig, because it's not just the gala and the big sponsors for the Palm Springs International Film Festival. It is, at the end of the day, it is the ticket goer, it's the film buff, it's the people who stand in line to go into a screening, rain or shine. Yep. And that has always been the bread and butter and the inspiration for the festival as a whole. It's great that the gala is over on top of that and celebrities show up. Yes. But it really is the rank and file who stand in those lines, buy the tickets, who make it all successful.
That's exactly right. And they just come from all over the world to stand in those long lines to get into the film festival. So you're absolutely right. There's so many pieces of a film festival. In fact, that's a flaw that so many film festivals worldwide make. It's a mistake they make because it looks so easy. They think they'll just rent a film and put it out, and that's all it is. But it is the securing of those volunteers and the staff and the theaters and making sure the publicity is out there. Oh, which reminds me again of that was another strength of Sonny. Sonny was all about publicity and promotion. And I remember a call from him. This would have been in probably 93, 94. That who's going to be seated at our table this year? Meaning, what celebrity was going to be there? And I said, well, he says, what are you going to do to promote the film festival? I said, well, Sonny, I think we ought to make a call to Katie Couric at the time, the Today Show, and get on the Today Show. And he said, well, yeah, that's something you can do. I said, Sonny, they're not interested in me. They're not interested in the film. They just would like to talk to you because you're an entertainer, you're a name, and that would get on the Katie Couric's Today Show. Well, it was that year that we lost Sonny, and but then I got a call. Would I be on our local NBC station at the time to talk about the horrible thing that happened for the film festival with Sonny? And I got there, and I remember Karen Devine saying, "Craig, we're going to tap you into New York City. You're going to talk to Katie Couric." And all of a sudden, I could hear Sonny's voice saying, "I told you we'd get on the Today Show." So that was something I will always remember. And we were on the Today Show that year, and we got a lot of attention for the film festival because of that.
Well, and it's important to note that the film festival took place within a week after his death. Yeah. So everybody was in mourning.
The world was here. I mean, the
Yeah.
world come to Palm Springs during that time. Do you remember how? I mean, how it was just it was that was an experience that I will always remember.
Yeah, I remember the gala that year was Sylvester Stallone as the honoree, and I
Yeah.
attended, but yet I was still in mourning. And
Yep.
in any event, life goes on, and I get asked often, "What would Sonny think about the festival now?"
Oh.
And it's the exact words you just used. He would have. I always say that he would have said, "I told you so."
Oh, you absolutely, yeah. And but I would add to that the only thing that first of all, it is so fabulous today. What it has turned into is incredible. So I'm not minimizing any of that, but I would like to have seen because he was such a visionary. He always thinking about. I would like to have seen that visionary word stay there because that was to me that was Sonny, the visionary of the tomorrows, and what it has turned into is exactly what he envisioned and hoped for.
Indeed. Let's move on to after Palm Springs for you, and then I really want to get into your book. But let's talk a little bit more of your international film festival experience around the world. Your favorite city festival, I mean, Bangkok intrigues me a lot. What an exotic place to go and to do and to stage a festival. Again, here you go again, another Craig Prater leap of faith into I don't know what the future holds, but I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
So what festival next for you is most memorable?
Well, there's no. I don't even have to even think about that one because right after I left Palm Springs, I was approached by the Royal Thai government that they were starting a new film festival, and would I come to the film festival or have a meeting with the government to start this new film festival? And I thought, I've never been to Bangkok. I can't imagine. This is a true international. And Mary, I'll always remember that first meeting. I was meeting with government, and I had 10 or 20 Tourism Authority of Thailand sitting around the table. And they said they wanted to talk about the budget the first year for Bangkok. And I said, could you speak to me in US dollars? Because I've not, in my mind, not able to handle the exchange between US dollars and the baht. Oh, no problem, Kun Cake, that was what they called me. So they said, well, now the first year we can only give you 15 million.
Oh
I
my
said,
God.
I said, no, please talk to me in US dollars and not baht. And they said, well, that is US dollars. Well, I go, what? Because I was so used to not having any money for a film festival. And they said, oh, okay, Cake, we could give you 18 the first year, but no more than that. So, they owned their own airlines, they owned the hotels. We had unlimited funds, but the exotic nature of Bangkok and that film festival was a film festival executive's dream. So I spent 5 years there, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Do they have a certain genre they focused on the most, or what?
No, it was all about, they like to refer to themselves at the time, we are going to be the Southeast Asia Cannes of the world. So they really thought they would duplicate the Cannes Film Festival. So that was their focus on just trying to make it bigger and better. And they had the money to do it because their budget was larger than even the Cannes Film Festival.
Did you spend it all, or did you have excess?
No, we spent it.
I would have gladly helped you spend that.
Because we were flying distributors of first class from all over the world. They were staying in 5-star hotels. We did spend it. And the awards gala there the first year was in the Queen Sarah Rott's Convention Center. We spent $1 million on that first year awards gala. 5,000 people. And Mary, in the show that was on the stage that was as big as a football field, we had live animals walking across the stage. It was something out of a storybook.
Wow. That's just amazing. They must have spoiled you rotten too.
They did. Oh, that's another thing. Because when I moved there, they had accommodations for me on the 25th floor of the Shangri-La Hotel. Now, me knowing film festivals don't have money, I walk into this and they're introducing me to where I would be living for the next 5 years. And I saw this beautiful 2-bedroom suite that was a dream. And of course, I was looking out the window to the Chao River. And I say, well, no, this is not necessary. I wasn't aware at the time that that was like a formal insult to the Royal Thai government of saying this is not necessary. So I had to send a letter of apology to the Royal Thai government saying I didn't understand and I apologize. So I made a lot of political faux pas in those early days of the film festivals.
That's great, though. One of my mottos in my life is, and people have probably heard me say this on other podcasts, that your lowlights can become your highlights. And so when things happen that are bad and really bad at the moment, but a little bit down the road, you can look back and laugh at them and kind of let the pain, suffering, embarrassment, humiliation, all of those things that come with bad moments. But later in life, you can heal over laughing at those lowlights. And it can become your highlight. We do it in my family all the time. You find that one thing that went really bad and we make fun of it, we laugh at it, we bring it up often to diffuse it. Do you have a moment in your career that low light, God, it was so bad, but in hindsight, it's rather funny?
I experience things like that more times than not anymore, Mary, because I guess when you live long enough, you think back, oh, what's happening today is things that I made fun of or I joked about, or I thought, oh, that's just an old man's attitude. I'm thinking, now I'm living that now. But the difference is, yes, I'm aware of that's something I made fun of in the past, and now I'm thinking, oh, somebody's making fun of me for saying or doing that. But the difference is you don't really care. You think, because tomorrow's going to be something new and better and exciting. So I don't get hung up on things that I would have taken too personal years ago.
Those are words to live by, I think, for anybody. We all go through it. It happens to us all. And the sooner you can pick yourself up and appreciate that it's a part of the human experience, I think the better. It does happen to us all. But are there more film festivals in your future?
I doubt it. A week doesn't go by that I don't get calls from filmmakers, because filmmakers are so talented with creating the film, but then they don't know what to do with their film. But today it's a different world. In fact, I have some personal thoughts about the future of film festivals as we know them today, because distribution has changed dramatically. You can do a film and be assured that you have some type of distribution tomorrow. That wasn't the case in years gone by, because you needed to secure a distributor to help you get your film a year or two later in theaters. But not anymore. There's all types of distribution now. So I don't no, I have no plans of being involved with another film festival, but I do spend a large portion of my time helping filmmakers get distribution or expose their films. So that's connections that I've just accumulated over the years.
Well, that's good. Now you're an author. What is the name of your book?
That happened by accident, Mary. I never intended to be an author. I still tell everybody, if you read this book, I would welcome just comments, because I've never pretended to be an author. I spent every film festival I ever worked, I kept notes and diaries of everything that happened. And then one day I was working on some stuff, and I said, I just wrote something that happened at the Bangkok Film Festival, or I think in Thessaloniki, Greece, or just different film festivals. And I said, there's always so many similarities with film festivals. Somebody said, you ought to write a book. I said, I don't know how to write a book. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, I ought to take these notes, but then there's so many comments that I might make that would be, exposure or insults to some people or whatever. And I thought, well, wait a minute, I'll make it a fiction book. And of course, I was always Jessica. Do you remember Jessica Fletcher on Murder, She Wrote?
Yes.
Do you remember that TV show? Well, during that time, I was a Jessica Fletcher fan. And I watch that old series and I think, why did I like it? Anyway, so I thought, I'm going to be my own little Jessica Fletcher. So I would take some of my little notes from different film festivals from around the world that I worked, and then put a spin on it, make up stuff as if I were Jessica Fletcher. So I had fun writing this first book called The Film Festival Murders. And yes, it's fiction and it's all made up, but it was inspiration that gave me ideas from different film festivals around the world.
But these are multiple murders? I'm sorry that I have not read your book yet. I need to.
Oh, yes, there's multiple murders. Yes, and
In
of course
multiple cities, or?
in multiple cities. Now, the book will focus on the desert cities, and it's I mean all names and everything. There's nothing that you could relate, but people that live in Palm Springs, people that live in Bangkok, people that live in Mexico City are going to say, "Wait a minute, that sounds awfully familiar with something here," but no, it's all just ideas from different locations, and but no murders really ever happened. It's all made up stories that I just had fun doing it.
Is this one murderer or murderess or
No,
who
there's
travels
more
the
than one
world?
murder.
Okay.
No, there's three or four murders in different ways. There were poisonings, there were accidents in planes, there was disappearances. So it's a mystery to the very end. You don't know what happens or who did what until the last two chapters.
Okay, but you have to still tell me a little bit more because you have me on the edge of my seat. Is this one syndicate of people? Are they all tied together, or is there?
Um,
Come
the
on.
murder involvement was all tied together, but it wasn't just one person. It was
Okay,
all tied together.
it is all tied together. All right. I feel like
Mhm.
I'm playing 30 guesses here to get the whole
You
book
know
out
what?
of you.
Here's one thing that is fun that I think our local audience in Palm Springs can have fun with, because years ago I was sitting. Now this is a true story. I was sitting in my office, and all of a sudden I looked up, and coming directly to the window in front of my desk was a big semi truck crashing to the building. Well, that was an accident. Somebody hadn't put on the brake, and this big truck rolled into the office and barely missed me. And of course, it
Wow.
made the newspaper. It was in the Desert Sun as a story. Well, of course, I made something big and dramatic out of that in the book. So, but the book is all fictitious. But that was something. That's an example of something in the book that's a fictitious, made-up story, but the basis of the thing that happened did really happen.
Sounds to me like this is a series of books in the making.
There's another one in motion right now that
More
will,
murders at film festivals.
yes, yes,
Hmm.
and with a focus on that the main character Parker Carrington is leaving the desert cities to go to a Southeast Asian city, and it's going to be working with all the governments in Southeast Asia with a focus on the location being in Bangkok, Thailand.
Oh, this is so great. Oh, yeah. Quick question for an author. I've always wondered this. How did you come up with the name Parker Carrington? How do you just come up with some name and a
I
character?
had fun making up the names, but if you think about it, Parker Carrington's initials are PC. Let's flip those backwards, and it becomes CP. So there's somebody that we might know with the initials of CP that they might try to visualize. Somebody made up a character of Parker Carrington that resembles somebody else. But again, that's another fantasy, because Parker Carrington is a made up character that I could only wish to look like Parker Carrington, because he was 6'2". He had blue black hair. He was a former model. He had all these things that a person would fantasize and dream about being. So it's things like that. But I did. I made up all the names to all the characters in the book.
All right. I realized I was very slow at getting to the Parker Carrington is Craig Prater's alter ego here. But I have always wondered that. And, I think that would be a lot of fun to name a character. But I think it's got to be a little nerve-wracking. You have to live with that character for the rest of your life, really.
Yeah, right.
That name and that character.
Well, it's strictly made up, and a total fascination by what the character was. Well, no, he's a real character in the book, but no, that would just be something I just made up and had fun making it up.
Any other characters whose
Oh,
names?
Angelina Barella, his wife. He has a photojournalist wife that is famous in her own right, and she's a powerful lady internationally, and she reports stories and takes photos of all the world events happening. And they fell in love late in life, and they have a wonderful love story. The book also includes a wonderful love story between Parker and Angelique.
Now, am I supposed to flip those initials around too and
No,
figure out this
that one won't
person?
work. I just made that one up.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I know that I'm going to be seeing you in a couple of months in Palm Springs out
Yes,
there.
and are you telling your viewers why I'm going to be seeing you in Palm Springs?
Well, I haven't yet, and I guess I'm a little shy about it. And I don't know when they'll be listening to this podcast. They might be listening after the fact or years down the road, or who knows. But
Well, I will save it for you to make an announcement, but there is a very exciting reason why I'm going to be seeing you in Palm Springs, and I can't wait. And it's I love seeing you for that reason.
well, you know what? Let's just take a moment here and indulge my ego, and let's talk about it. I'm receiving my star on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars.
Past due.
Thank you. I know I'm like number 487, but for the record, I think that's the number. I've never tried to get that star, never worked for it. I don't know. It wasn't on my list of, I need that. But thanks to our mutual friend, Kim Waltrip, she decided to run with us and get it done and have it done. And I'm honored that the committee said, yep. And I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited that you're going to be able, you have your star. What number is yours?
454.
Oh, then I'm wrong on what number I am, but I'm not too far. I don't know. Maybe I'm 567. I don't know.
You know, I don't keep track of the numbers, but Mary, yours is well earned, well deserved, and it's going to be very, very exciting. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. It's fun because, as we talked about, the early days of the Sophia Loren Star and some of the great moments, it is huge. It's a huge honor for me. And
but Mary, here's the difference in using talking about the stars with your placement, because when your star gets put there, people walk by and say, "Oh, Mary Bono, I know Mary Bono," blah blah blah. So that, but I have fun every now and then when I go over, because my star is right to the left foot of Marilyn Monroe, and I've been over there taking pictures with tourists with the statue, and people will walk by my star and they go, "Who in the hell is Craig Prater?" So you're going to have one step ahead of me on your star, because they're going to know who you are.
That's good for the ego. Who is that person? I know. And then you have to think of the people who are trampling all over it, walking all over it, not knowing who you are. There's that side to it. It can cut both ways, I guess, for the ego. But no, I'm looking forward to it, and going to see a lot of friends and family and reminisce and all that great stuff. Thank you for bringing it up. I wasn't going to talk about it, but
well, it's well earned, well deserved. So I cannot wait to see you. So
well, thank you. Give you a hug then. And I just wanted to thank you for coming on. You were just, I knew, going to be a fun guest, and we'd reminisce and talk like old times, and hopefully our listeners had a great opportunity to learn a little bit about the film festival in Palm Springs and what it takes to, first of all, just pick up and try something entirely new and different. So take some risks. Also,
that's right. And I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, so I just go in at full force.
Yeah. And I think we all have to believe in our talents to make things through. Maybe we don't have what it takes at the beginning as far as the resume might look. Maybe inner characteristics and traits and perseverance can carry us through that moment of doubt, or the times where, gee, I don't know what I'm doing. And Craig, I experienced that when I went to Congress, because since I came in a special election, I didn't have any orientation. Other members of Congress, they come in, they get 3 or 4 days, they get notebooks and binders and briefings, and nothing. I just was thrown into it. So I was talking
Mary,
to...
you didn't miss a beat, though. I remember those days. You kept on trucking, so good for you.
Thank you. But I had said to the conference, about 200 other members of Congress, that I said I had to speak to them, and I said, please help me because I don't know what I'm doing. And the whole room seemed to yell back in one voice, "Don't worry, Mary, we don't know what we're doing either." So that could be a whole episode for a whole nother show. Does the Congress actually know what they're doing? But the point is that. So, and then I wanted to also say to people, take a risk, believe in your dreams. And if you hear somebody else with a crazy dream, help them out. Help them out. Sure. And, one last thought on that. And I told Craig up front, I'm not going to talk too much about Sonny. And I've done more of that than I have in a long time. When he ran for mayor, he said, you know what, I'm going to finance this campaign by selling T-shirts. And I had to laugh. T-shirts. We're going to run a campaign solely by selling T-shirts. And sure enough, we sold about $100,000 worth of T-shirts out of our restaurant.
I remember.
And,
And
so
everybody had to have his signature on that T-shirt. I always thought, well, I guess, are they ever going to wash that T-shirt? But no, he signed a lot of T-shirts.
He did, and it financed that campaign. So in any event, again, I didn't believe in that one, but he pulled it off. So
Yep.
In any event, I just want to thank you, Craig. Again, I will see you in a short while. And again, to our listeners, thank you for spending some time with us here on Sagely Speaking. I hope you had fun. To our sponsors, thank you for continuing to invest in this podcast. We couldn't do it without you, and we really appreciate it. And for everybody, until we see you or you see us or you listen to us in the future, we just want to wish you all things good.